Welcome back, everybody, to a very unique edition of OA News Overtime. I'm Jordan Hill. I'm outside Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. I just got
Airport
back to
edition.
Atlanta. Yeah, the airport edition of the Overtime podcast. Jordan Hill, always with Justin Lee. Justin.
Jordan, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Auburn had a game last night.
Auburn had a football game.
So where do we want to start? 28-20, Penn State wins. Auburn was right there, had a couple drives late where it looked like they had a chance to, at the very least, tie the game. Didn't come to pass, turnover on downs on one drive, and then Auburn just simply ran out of time on the second one. Just what do you immediately want to jump into about the game and how it played out for Auburn?
You tell me, and you tell me about the environment, first of all. I guess that was the story all week going in, right, is the whole environment. So you were there. What was it like in Happy Valley?
For sure. It was loud. I feel safe to say it was not the loudest stadium I've ever been in, but it was definitely loud. And you saw it a few times, a few false starts. I know, and another one late, Brodarius Ham kind of got away with a false start. But on the whole, I didn't think it, really rattled Auburn. I didn't get the sense that, they were having to call timeouts out of confusion. So it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed, from being a rider up in the press box. It was cool, and the press box shook probably 80% of the time. So that was a little, kept you on your toes. But yeah, I mean, it was loud, but I wouldn't say, like you tweeted the Joe Burrow talking about LSU, and I mean, there's still plenty of stadiums I think that are louder, but I mean, it made for a fun environment, and on the whole, I don't think it really affected Auburn like we thought it could, because clearly, communication was going to be a big factor. And again, there were a few penalties, but on the whole, I didn't think it really rattled Auburn too much.
Well, Jordan, just what's been on your mind, man, on the plane ride, everything else? I know every Auburn fan, everyone out there has plenty on their mind, after, a play call or two that didn't make a lot of sense. And just what's your kind of takeaway? I don't know, what's been on your mind?
Couple things. I just think that they waited too long to really get Tank going in the second half. I mean, and he made up for it. I mean, he was running hard once they really got him going, and it was kind of out of necessity after, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, that receiver pass that just, I mean, ultimately the worst possible scenario wound up playing out, and it cost Auburn big. And I mean, that led to a big Penn State score that made it a double-digit lead for the Nittany Lions. So that was big. I mean, running Tank and Jarquez looked great. I mean, the fact he hurdled a dude like in crunch time. So, I think they could have ran a lot more with those two. I think that they were really hurting Penn State by running the ball, and I don't think they did it quite enough. And then the fourth and two call, I mean, you got to get the ball to Tank. And even if you're not handing it to him, you got to run him out of the backfield and maybe throw it to him. But if you need 2 yards, you got to trust Tank Bigsby, and they didn't, and they called a goal line fade, which, I don't know, it feels like that very seldomly works, and it did not work for Auburn.
I've never seen it work, and outside the NFL, I mean, but anyway, and it certainly never worked at Auburn. I mean, it's like for the Auburn viewer, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not like, oh, remember when Cam Newton used to throw those goal line fades? No.
Every fan base that I'm aware of is just totally off the goal line fade. And it just doesn't work. There's not enough room. I mean, it's just, you got such limited space. I just don't see. I would much rather you try to, run like a rub route or something, and try like on a couple slants or something, and maybe try to, get Penn State kind of running into each other if you're going to throw the ball. But I mean, maybe even like an RPO. Bo had a couple really nice runs in this game.
Oh, listen, I mean, you talk about get the ball to Tank or give Bo a chance. A two-step drop is not the play. Give Bo a chance. I mean, I don't know how. And then, let me ask you about this. Let's get into it, Jordan. Let's get into it. All right. So in the post game, he's talking about, Brian says, we already have the script for that. We already planned that. You have to stick to the plan, which is avoiding the question, because we didn't ask when you decided it. We asked you why did you decide it, right?
Yes.
But then when he goes to, there's 5 things that could happen on that play, what did you infer from that? Because I'm like, okay, yeah, every play has pre-snap reads, every play has a kill, but I don't know, what did you infer on what he was trying to get at?
I think he just didn't want to throw Bo under the bus, and I don't think you necessarily would need to throw Bo under the bus because I mean, what Brian said was, I want to look at the play to see if that was the right read. And, looking live, it kind of sounded like as the play was happening, Harsin kind of wasn't watching. He was like, well, at the start of the play, I saw that the ball went up and that basically Kobe wasn't in line with where the ball was going. So I don't know, but I mean, I think that's a play call that you can easily question and then it didn't work out. And then right. I was having kind of flashbacks to that South Carolina game last year where they still wound up driving down and still I was sitting there like, man, I'm going to have to ride another game or like get them ready if Bo makes them, gets them in the end zone there at the end. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to kind of question some of the play calling, especially because at the end of the day, and we talk about it all the time, get your best players the ball.
Right.
Yeah, Tank visibly upset after that play, and he should have been.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get on 4th and 2. Like, if it's like 4th and 7, 4th and 8, like, all right, you know what I mean? But
right.
Tank Bigsby can get you 2 yards, and he did it throughout that night against Penn State. Like, there was no real reason to question that he wasn't going to be able to pick that up.
Right. Jordan, Bo Nix threw the ball 37 times.
Do you remember what we talked about? Do you remember like a specific like number? I was like 30, 35. Like 35 was really like danger, Will Robinson, danger. And it didn't work. It did not work. And Auburn very well could have won that game. And I think that, I think they all need to realize that. And obviously, I mean, there's still a lot. I felt like I was about to quote Gus Malzahn. So, we've still got everything ahead of us.
Right.
But I mean, it's not like a demoralizing loss. The fact where it's like, well, the season's over, nothing like that. But I mean, you had a game right there against a top 10 team that would have easily been, the marquee win of Brian Harsin's first year. And even at the end of the year, it, very well might have stood as, his marquee win in his first year. And you just kind of overthought things. I mean, I just felt like they had the opportunities. And in spite of the pass rush was terrible. I mean, I felt like last year we talked so much about the Kevin Seal Auburn defense, let quarterbacks, look like their best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what Sean Clifford did last night. I mean, I think he might have been like 28 for 32. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was ridiculous for somebody who I'm seriously, as I was walking into the stadium, there were Auburn fans and Penn State fans just kind of talking, and I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of it was in good faith and like, good-natured, talking. And there were so many Penn State fans that are like, man, y'all are going to win. We got Sean Clifford. Like, oh, like y'all are going to win this game. And then he went out there, and again, I mean, he looked like a guy that could go win the Johnny Unitas Award. Like they had no answer for him, and they couldn't get after him. And it was a very disappointing showing, I would say, for that pass defense in their first real test.
Right. I mean, you talk about last year, it was Stetson Bennett. You like Felipe Franks 2 years ago.
Jarrett Garantano
twice. and like all of Kellen Mond's best games were against Auburn. It's crazy, man. And listen, I mean, we can sit here and just second guess every single play and but hey, man, this is our podcast where we share our opinions, so that that's kind of what we're gonna do. But yeah, and I'm just thinking about I think it was a winnable game, Jordan. I really do. And that's where I'm sure some and I wrote this after, right? This is another thing you can kind of get into is, well, a lot of Auburn fans are still, some people are pretty like, oh, wow, we could not pass rush. Like, this is a problem. And then other Auburn fans are like, oh, well, I liked how they fought. And obviously the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But, I kind of wrote it like, hey, man, there's a lot of Auburn fans who are excited about Auburn football right now just because Gus Malzahn isn't the coach. And the thing is, after a game like that and performances like that, now Brian and Auburn, they have to start, you got to start winning games that people want to win, because people aren't just going to be excited just because Gus isn't on the sideline anymore. That's not going to work anymore when you're losing games that you could have won and you're losing games that people want to win. So I don't know when and Jordan, I mean, we'll have plenty of time to look at the rest of the schedule, but man, I had to tweet it this morning. I think LSU is a can't lose game all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be huge. And think about what's around that game. Auburn hasn't won there since '99.
Yeah,
it's not going to be an easy task. And even for LSU struggles, I don't think you can mark that like a definite win. But I think you hit on it right there with Harsin. The fact that, I mean, this was pretty much the end of the honeymoon phase. You know what I mean? Like now everybody's kind of, the good nature and, well, it's not Gus. At least it's not Gus. Well, I mean, however that game might have played out with Gus, you're walking away with a loss and you're walking away with a chance again. You could have beat a top 10 team and you didn't. And you're trying to just, make sure that doesn't linger. I mean, because I think it was clear that, there were probably some hard feelings among some of the players. And, credit to some guys like Kobe Hudson who had that fumble I mentioned. Went on social media and was like, look, that was a mistake. I can't let it happen. I think maybe Jacoby McClain also, because that targeting, he was like, look, Auburn family, I need to do better, things like that.
Boy, let me tell you, man, you know how every game there's an awful call and everyone says, that's the worst call I've ever seen. Listen, man, we're coming, 24 hours, I guess 20 hours later? That was a bad freaking call. I cannot get over it.
I don't know what he was supposed to do.
He's supposed to just let him. He was about to extend the ball to the goal line, and he stopped him with his shoulder. I don't get it. I don't get it. I didn't. That was so like, yeah. I mean, we use that hyperbole a lot. I honestly think I'm going to look at that play a lot. Like at the end of the year and be like, yeah, that was still the stupidest thing I saw. Like that was, I didn't understand it. But anyway,
and I totally get, and I know we've talked about it. I totally get you try to take guys, leading with their head, take that out of the game. You don't need to do that. But like,
he didn't really.
No. I mean, just generally, like with some of this stuff, just use common freaking sense. Yeah. I mean, I just don't understand what an official in that situation would want Jacoby to do other than let him score.
He was,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say he was not targeting. Like that was not his intent. So you may have called him on targeting, but he wasn't targeting. So,
and,
what are we doing here?
The officials had quite a night. I mean, that wasn't the first. I mean, they messed up the downs with Penn State. And I really thought that would be a fumble return Penn State had. I was just sitting there like, man, they're going to wind up upholding this. And this place is going to go nuts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That fake punt was clearly a first down. Like I
thought, that gave him a terrible spot. And I was sitting there watching.
Whistle. He was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yikes.
I was watching James Franklin like, surely he's going to challenge this. And he didn't even really seem to react like with the official right there. He was just getting the defense ready.
Right.
So, okay. Yeah. Whatever.
It was tough, man. But, you mentioned Jacoby apologizing, Kobe apologizing, and I think about it and, Auburn fans don't want to see that 5 times this year.
No.
They don't want Kobe and Jacoby beating themselves up. And Kobe shouldn't be beating himself up because that was a dumb idea right out of half to run that play right there. Give the ball to Tank. He had 8 first half carries. Line up and hand the ball to Tank Bigsby. Everyone, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how anyone can look at that play. And everyone's like, oh, don't drop, Kobe shouldn't have dropped the ball. I know he shouldn't have. But there is no, like, check down. You know what I mean? If you do the reverse – and he looks to throw, and the receiver's covered, bad call, bad job. The guy's supposed to be open, and if he's not open, you called the play at the wrong time. You didn't do it right.
Yeah. Well, I just think that timing in the game just didn't make sense. Like I could see if maybe they were kind of, later in the game, and they were trying, they were like in Penn State territory or something like that. But I was like, man, we are coming right out. Like it was like they were almost like, all right, we haven't called a trick play today. Why don't we call a trick play?
Yeah, I mean,
it did not work. And hey, credit to Kobe. I know that he was targeted on that very, that last throw that was turnover on downs. I mean, but he made plays after that fumble. Like I feel like he really, you can't, because I saw, I think a couple of people were tweeting at you saying like he didn't need to be in the game, and it's like, I mean, he had a big 3rd down conversion at one point. It was like, God, these guys are not going to be perfect. If you've ever watched a football game, there's going to be a missed tackle or a fumble.
Right.
Like, that's just the way the game goes. But you just wait on those guys to get a chance to redeem themselves. And I'm sure Kobe felt bad after the game, but I felt like, he did plenty after that to where that shouldn't be what lingers about what he was able to do.
Man, Jordan, you mentioned Twitter. Can I just tell you how I was howling when just the Auburn fans getting mad about screens. And I'm like, screen passes don't live in Orlando now. Like,
No.
I'm sorry. Every offense runs screens. If that's why you hated Gus, you hated Gus for the wrong reasons because everybody runs them. Live with it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, you'd like to see a screen to Tank to get him the ball somewhere or other. You know what I mean? Anyway.
And we'd heard a little bit about them maybe trying to get the running backs more involved, but I mean, on the whole, we haven't seen that a ton.
I don't think I saw a running back targeted for a pass.
I don't think this week. I remember Jarquez. I think that was last week or against Akron. But I mean, clearly that's a little bit different competition.
I'll tell you what, Jordan. This is why all of a sudden I think LSU is a must-win game. Because after that you play Georgia, and then you play at Arkansas, where Texas just went up and got whooped. And then you have a little bye week to try to come up with an answer for Lane Kiffin, who's scoring 60 points a freaking game.
I'm telling you, since the start of the season, I mean, even before the season, I think that's a loss. And what I've seen from Ole Miss, I think I still feel that way. Yeah,
and then you got a road trip to only Kyle Field and Texas A&M. Gonna be like I said, man. All of a sudden, you don't want to go to Death Valley thinking, oh my gosh. But I don't know, man. And I'd love your perspective, kind of. So Josh Dubb, I said LSU's pretty much can't lose game right now, and you can take that for what it is. I mean, obviously Brian Harson's not on the hot seat. I know that.
Yeah.
But when Josh Dubb, who we know on Twitter and like a lot, just replies to me and says, "So year zero is already over," and my first thought is, there ain't no year zero.
Not in this position.
Yeah.
No, not in the situation here.
What do you think? I mean, because Auburn went 6-4 last year. They had a winning season. I mean, is someone saying that a losing season is acceptable? Because I don't think so.
Well, I think you have to look at it as, for me, a year zero is like a situation like Georgia Tech a few years ago where they're totally scrapping the offense. It's a whole new look. Mm-hmm. I don't think Auburn qualifies as a year zero. You fired Gus because he didn't win enough. That doesn't mean
right.
And that doesn't mean that anything less than 12-0 is a failure. But you don't go in and say, well, we're rebuilding. Yeah, we did just fire our coach and never had a losing season, but we'll be okay if we go 6-6. Like, no, the standard's going to be higher than that. And Brian Harsin would tell you that. I mean, the one thing that I really appreciated, and Justin Ferguson of the Auburn Observer pointed this out when we were just sort of talking after the game, there wasn't the kind of like stepping around the loss, like, to Gus's credit, I mean, he did plenty of good things, but when they lost, it was always, we control our destiny. Everything's still ahead of us. I mean, Brian was like, he didn't say we're pissed, but I mean, he essentially said, we're pissed. We're not happy about this. We came here to win these kind of games and we didn't. So, I mean, I did like that perspective, but that's the understanding. They came to Auburn knowing that Alabama is right there and that there's not going to be room to win, post 5, 6, 7 win seasons. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be accepted. And there's not going to be, to me, there's not a year zero. I think with these circumstances, you can't qualify this Auburn program and what Brian Harsin took over as a year zero. And you certainly will give a coach more leash in year one because, I mean, it's a whole new, coaching staff and things like that. But
that's year one.
Yes, absolutely. You don't get a pass.
You think he gets a year one next year? No,
not at all.
No. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's not this is not an Auburn volleyball build. You know what I mean? Like, he took over a good program. People were mad at Gus for losing with all the talent he had.
Yes. I mean, when Alan Green made the hire, he talked about that the goal was to consistently contend for national championships.
Right.
Well, what are we talking about then? That's not a year zero talk. That's not year zero talk.
No.
And that's just the way it goes.
Right. That's just how it is. Well, hey man, we need to get your traveling continuing.
Yes, going to Auburn.
Yeah, get on.
Let me share real quick just the trip.
Okay.
Fun trip. Stayed in Philadelphia. It was great. Went and saw the Liberty Bell. Went and saw the Rocky Steps at the Art Museum. That was really cool. So then we went to Penn State on Friday night, got to check out a couple of different bars, kind of check out the scene. Really fun college town. I enjoyed it. I know you would have had a heck of a time. I'd have probably had to kept you on a leash if you would have come. So it was fun. And then we went in and we parked, getting ready for the game. And so I had a parking pass, and I got in the lot, and so I just parked in this lot. I was like, all right, I got the parking pass for the slot. Well, I didn't realize there were assigned parking spots in this lot. So go.
What is it, high school?
Well, and I've never seen that at any stadium, and maybe you know what, maybe that's on me. They probably mentioned something in an email about like where you're supposed to park. Cover the game, things go crazy. Ride the gamer. We wait forever to try to talk to people on Zoom. That was a total mess.
Yeah.
I'm finally like, all right, I got everything I'm doing tonight. So I walk out probably like 12:45 Eastern, and I walk back to the parking lot, and I cannot find my rental car, and I'm like, I know I'm in the right spot. Like, I'm not on like the wrong side of the stadium. Look forever. Finally, Bennett Durando and Christian Clemente meet me out there, and they're like, "Yeah, you're in the right spot. Your car's going." So then I have to call campus security, and then initially I called them, like, describe the rental car, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't have a record of that." And I'm like, well, it's definitely not here.
Well, now my car just got stolen.
The nice thing was I had the keys and it was push to start. So I was like, it's somewhere around here. So credit to one of the campus security guys. He drove me around. He's like, yeah, they'll just come and like just tow cars out of that parking lot. And they just moved it from one lot to like another lot, like 200 yards behind where I was.
What?
So, yeah. So I
didn't know this part of the story.
Yeah. So the campus security guy drove me back there. And I'm just clicking the key, like looking for it again. I'm trying to just remember what this car looks like. I've only been driving it like a day. And finally it goes off and I get it. So I finally get in it. I go pick up my buddy Evan, who lives in Philly, that was hanging out with me for the weekend. And then we go back. I'm so full of adrenaline at that point. I was like, look, we're just going to go get the stuff from where we were staying. We're just going to drive back to Philly because that's where I was flying out.
Oh, geez.
So we got our stuff, drove back. I got to Philly at like 6:30 or 7, slept for like 2 hours, and went to the airport. And buddy, I'm talking to you right now.
Hey, here I am. Jeez, dude. How long is it from State College to Philly?
Like 3.5 hours.
Jeez. So did they find you, or did they find you, or did they just pick up the car?
They just picked it up and moved it.
That's insane. Okay, that's crazy to me, because in Auburn, if they look at your car, it's $100. Like,
yeah. if they were going to, there wasn't any paperwork or anything like that left on it. So I think they were just like, they just moved it.
Yeah, well, it's not your car, not your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be banned from State College, and that'll never be part of the.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a shame. Hopefully, that won't hang over when Penn State comes back to Auburn next year.
That's true. Hopefully, they don't bring their police department. No, I remember one time we were in.
That's not their jurisdiction. They can't do anything to me.
I remember one time we were in Austin, and we parked illegally, and we got a sticker that's like one of those orange stickers that's basically like, "We've recorded you, don't do it again." And we're like, all right, drove back. Like, I'll never be here again.
What was funny was Bennett Durando, who, if for anyone listening, he's with the Montgomery Advertiser. He was talking about in Philly the day before that, he had gotten towed. He went in and he parked somewhere. He had parked somewhere, went in, and I think had breakfast with a friend, came back, and the car was gone. So when we were all out there, I was like, oh my God, like I laughed at Bennett. Look at me, look at where I am now.
Oh man, I was gonna say State College truly is the Auburn of the North, but that was Philly, so
yeah.
Man, they'll get you here in Auburn. They don't play.
No doubt.
Well, heck, man, we gotta get you home then.
Let's do it. I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's wrap this up, I guess. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to add? Hey, man, this is welcome to life, and like this is what I put is like, hey, all right, now the Brian Harsin era starts because the honeymoon's over. It's not just scoring 60 points every game anymore, and like I said, people were excited just for a different voice and a breath of fresh air. Now you need to give people something to actually get excited about besides that.
I agree. I think you hit it right on the head. I would just say, I would tell everybody to keep an eye out. The next few days, there's going to still be more stories. And keep an eye out, too, about, more talk about that Penn State game because they're playing Georgia State this week. Right. So, the focus is still probably going to be on that Penn State game, at least for a little bit.
Right. No, you're right. Awesome, Jordan. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man.
We'll get this thing posted.
Let's do it.
Drive careful, all right, man?
Will do.
All right.